Thanks for tuning into the Jurassic Park-Cast, the Jurassic Park podcast where guests chat with me about Michael Crichton's 1990 novel Jurassic Park. And also not that too. A big shout out to Christoph Oakes of Snale, and a big thank you to him for letting me use his band's music to score this podcast. You can find his music on Spotify and Bandcamp. Today's intro is from the song Death of a Dream, and the outro is Sleepyhead from Snale's debut album Snale. In this clip from episode 24, Control, we can see that as our heroes reach Isla Nublar and begin taking a tour of Jurassic Park, they tour the visitor center, inspecting the control room, the extractions lab, the gene sequencing room, the fertilization room, the hatchery, and the nursery, and they even take a stroll out back while they wait for the unbeatable dock, which can be a little hairy at times, to pass the maintenance building / generator shed / power plant. It gets called a lot of things in the novel, as they head out to the Velociraptor holding pen. And in each location, Crichton spends some time revealing the science and technology that keeps Jurassic Park afloat, from the incredible details in cloning techniques to deciphering DNA strands, to maintaining a Jurassic atmosphere for the porous eggshells, to the hunting behavior of velociraptors. There is a load of details that get crammed into these substantial and admittedly lengthy chapters. The tour begins on page 92, and Control ends on page 120. That is a lot of space in a book committed to touring the facilities and having all these scientific details unloaded upon us readers. And the fact is, if you stop and think about most of the details for too long, you realize this is a lot more science fiction than it is science fiction. I've got a few excerpts that illustrate what I'm talking about. Here's the first from episode 21, the tour part 1. Helotoxins, colchicinoids, beta-alkaloids. To start, there are no, as far as I can tell, helotoxins, but there is the hemotoxin, which has an M in it. Hemotoxins destroy red blood cells, disrupt blood clotting, and cause organ degeneration and generalized tissue damage. Bad stuff to get on you. This is said to be very painful and causes permanent damage, and in severe cases, death. You could lose a limb due to it if not treated immediately. Hemotoxins are found in venomous animals like vipers and spiders. It both helps kill the prey and aids in digestion, so I've read. So Crichton spelled hemotoxin wrong, or made up a new poison that sounds like one you could find in venomous animals that does do what hemotoxins do. Colchicinoids are any of a group of compounds related to colchicine, which is extracted from plants and used to treat rheumatic complaints, and now generally used in treatment for gout. This is an oral medication where the risk of overdosing is severe. Common side effects are a sore tummy, but high doses can damage bone marrow, hair loss, anemia, and then inhibited mitosis, or severe body failures. You can easily overdose and die. It's dangerous and spelled correctly, so that's good too. Beta-alkaloids is some reference to alkaloids, which are naturally occurring organic compounds produced by many varied organisms that are used in medicine, having physical and psychological effects. And whatever a beta-alkaloid is, it isn't very common nor commonly written about in the past 20 years. I found a reference to them on a law website where lawyers are encouraged to prove closed head injuries in their clients by looking for beta-alkaloids, which apparently a lawyer's, quote, expert on the stand will testify begin to form on and in the brain as a body's response to the injury to the brain. Because there is no medical reference to be found on beta-alkaloids, nor their presence in the event of brain injuries, I'm not sure what type of expert would testify to this, other than fictitious cloning geneticist Dr. Henry Wu, I suppose. I found another healthcare website focusing on neurology, saying that examples of beta-alkaloids which are causing neurological tremors include harmine and harmane. So further down the rabbit hole we go. Harmine is a beta-carboline and a harmala alkaloid found in a variety of plants, which has been found to be relatively toxic to humans in doses above 3 milligrams per kilogram. Symptoms including behavioral changes in sleep, tremors, tummy trouble, nausea, and vomiting. Harmane is a chemical, but I can't make heads or tails of what it means. I think Crichton may have intended to reference beta-carboline alkaloids, but missed one of the words. These are a general class of many types of alkaloids and synthetic compounds, which can affect all sorts of things, but notably brain function and pharmacological effects. And note, the Serena veriformins that Sattler identifies at poolside also contain a deadly beta-carboline alkaloid on page 85, so how do you like that? Are these great references to include in the novel? I'd say no. They aren't spelled correctly, and so referring them to any real harm is strained, but it certainly sounds significant. but serves as just another example that it's much easier to gloss over Crichton's science because it sounds good than it's worth digging into what he's actually referencing. But this is just more world building. In a world where these made-up clunkily referenced poisons are in a lab, where a small dose of which can kill any living animal within a second or two, one boy who likes technical things will begin to lose interest. So that's the science part of the science fiction that Crichton is writing. Here's an example of the fiction part from episode 22 of the tour, part 2. Chekov's gun. This term comes from Anton Chekov's famous book on writing advice, where he says, if you say in the first chapter that there is a rifle hanging on the wall, in the second or third chapter, it absolutely must go off. If it's not going to be fired, it shouldn't be hanging there. Says masterclass.com on a similar topic, Chekov's gun is a dramatic principle that suggests that details within a story or a play will contribute to the overall narrative. This encourages writers to not make false promises in their narrative by including extemporaneous details that will not ultimately pay off by the last act, chapter, or conclusion. In other books on literary fundamentals, this element is considered cohesion, in that everything a creator puts into their story should serve the story meaningfully. It's all got to be related. It has to have cohesion, or else, relative to your story, it's a waste of time and space, which is bad. Put in Jurassic Park terms, if you say in the first chapter there's a mosasaur, in the second or third chapter it absolutely must eat somebody. If it's not going to eat somebody, it shouldn't be there. Good for us, in Jurassic World, the mosasaur does eat things. It's cool. Tim serves as our Anton Chekov. He's an observant boy, and he just happens to take special notice of things that we, as readers, are going to see pay off down the line. In this chapter, Wu says there are, quote, some of the most virulent poisons in the world in storage of the fertilization room, in page 105, including helotoxins, colchicinoids, beta-alkaloids, all kept in a series of syringes under the UV light, which will, quote, kill any living animal within a second or two. Tim would like to know more about those poisons, we're told. Tim is kind of a Jurassic Park-y version of Chekov. When he notices something, pay attention. It's going to pay off down the line. And I've got more examples in episode 24, Control, but more importantly, I think we get to the important part of science fiction, and that is that this is a story, first and foremost. This isn't an academic paper. We would never be entertained by an academic paper like we are by a well-written sci-fi. I think the point is made very clear in this excerpt. Check it out. Sketchy science. The famous Lysine Contingency comes into us in this chapter. Wu describes how the dinosaurs they've cloned are reliant upon them for essential doses of lysine, which without, they fall into a coma and die within 12 hours. This is a safety protocol to prevent animals from escaping. However, looking a bit more closely at what lysine is, it's an amino acid commonly used in proteinogenesis, a process by which your body automatically performs, which incorporates the amino acids biosynthetically into proteins during translation, whatever that means. That's about as general as I'm able to convert what I read about this, but know that these proteins that are created perform a, quote, vast array of functions within organisms, including catalyzing metabolic reactions, DNA replication, responding to stimuli, providing structure to cells and organisms, and transporting molecules from one location to another. These all sound very important to do that thing called living. So lysine is important to live, because it's essential for proteins to do the things that they do to help living things live. I've read that, in fact, quote, the most common role for lysine is proteinogenesis, playing an important role in protein structure. So, Crichton has identified a great element upon which to focus a control mechanism for biological animals. No problem here yet. The sketchy part comes next. Did you know the human body also does not synthesize lysine? Jurassic Park did not have to meddle with our DNA for us to also not synthesize lysine. Even though it's essential in humans, though. It must be obtained through diet. So we as humans are not unlike Jurassic Park's dinosaurs. We also must have lysine in our diets or else we fail. Lack of lysine plays a role in anemia, protein energy malnutrition, and neurological disabilities like epilepsy, ataxia, spasticity, and psychomotor impairment, among other things. But take that with a grain of salt. I am likely overlooking a load of details. I am just a man. Have you ever worried that you're not eating enough lysine? Of course not, because it's available in high-protein foods like eggs, meat, specifically red meats like lamb, pork, and poultry, soy and beans and peas and cheese, fish like cod and sardines, as well as in cereal grains, legumes, and pulses. Basically, lysine is found in food. Bonus lysine is good. It's added to animal feed in multi-billion-dollar global animal feed industries, where it helps optimize the growth of livestock like hogs and chickens. So, Unless the animals are being fed something other than food, they should be getting lysine. It's just part of a healthy diet. Jurassic Park handlers would have to try awfully hard to provide the dinosaurs with food that lacked lysine, or in order for them to be dependent upon their tablets. And escaped animals, so long as they're eating food, should be able to find lysine as well. Perhaps we made them reliant upon a higher quantity of lysine than usual? I don't know. Bow down before the master. It must be noted Crichton knew full well that Deinonychus antiropus wasn't a velociraptor, but found that the name Velociraptor was way cooler sounding, and so took artistic license and just ignored the name Deinonychus altogether, thus naming his villain Velociraptor instead. It's not a mistake. It's artistic license, and perhaps that's what we could say about almost all of this novel. Is this novel a great scientific paper? No, absolutely not, full stop. But did Crichton's choices when using artistic license make the final 200 pages of this novel into some of the most intense dinosaur science fiction the world has ever known? Yeah, it did. So I'm willing to cut him some slack. His instincts for having nature run amok are very strong. We need to take a break from calling Crichton out on his sketchy science and nitpicking all the mistakes in the last few chapters. It feels dishonest as a fan to say you love something and then poke and pick at all its warts and scars. But the truth is, we love it despite its flaws, and maybe that's what love is. We need to greatly appreciate that Crichton is actually masterfully stringing up a series of marionettes, and he's the puppet master that's going to make them all dance. All of the details, all of the science, the locations, the characters, the graphs, and the charts, and the dialogue, it's all going to pay off later in the book. There are no empty calories in here. From the start of the tour right up to when they exit the Land Cruisers to mess around with that Stegosaurus, Crichton has been juggling details and the plot, and as the chapters go on, he's adding more and more insane items to the juggler's trick. Like when that busker gets up on a unicycle and juggles bowling pins, chainsaws, lit torches, and then a newborn baby at the same time. That's what Crichton's doing. Literally, this may be Crichton at his very finest. The teratogenic substances, the eggs, the ultraviolet lights, the security cards all play a part in the final chapters. The double redundancy, safety procedures, and systems of control are all carefully erected to sound good, but reveal their flaws without our noticing, unless we're Malcolm. And we're even attacked by a pack of man-eating velociraptors who've acquired the taste for human blood in this chapter. He's setting up a Rube Goldberg contraption, or lined up the dominoes, or whatever metaphor works for you, and he's about to let this thing loose on people. He just needs Nedry to execute the command. It's such a cool book. See, we can forgive Crichton for employing creative license and dosing his science with enough fiction that it comes together in a thrilling novel. Does this help you feel a little bit better about any of the technicalities that you may find in the novel? Because I hope so. Alright, a big thank you to you for tuning in. If you're interested in more of the podcast, you can find it wherever podcasts are, and just look for Jurassic Park-Cast, include those hyphens, or Jurassic Park Podcast. That might work too. And if you like the videos, you can like and subscribe and receive notifications when a new one is available, because there is a lot more to come. Alright, thank you. Until next time.